Oh no, hopefully you can hear us, Avery. Okay. Welcome to week six of our classes already. We're flying. And last week we started talking about book covers kind of in general. But this week we have a great treat in that Hanne Broter, who is coming to us from Oslo, Gran, Norway, which is outside of Oslo, Norway, land of the Northern Lights and reindeer and lots of snow, and our own beloved Hanne. So she's a graphic designer. She's incredible. She did all of Highlander Press's graphics, logos, branding. She also did my personal author site. She does some of our author website builds. She's absolutely incredible. But here's a fun fact about Hanne. She's always been an artist. So she's an artist, a graphic designer, but she's a flautist. And she actually is world renowned. Am I beefing you up a little bit too much? She went to a school, art school, and she actually was so good that her instructor had her co-teach. So she's been loving teaching for a very long time, and she's hilarious. She has a great sense of humor. And I think you're really going to enjoy today's class. I'm really building you up, Hanne. You've never let us down ever. So Hanne is going to really dig into like the science and the art behind cover design. So she's going to build on what we talked about last week. John is not here this week. He had an emergency dental appointment. So we're wishing him well with that. I think he would rather be here. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand the reins over to you, Hanne. Do you prefer if people save their questions to the end, or do you prefer if they ask them as we go through?
I actually prefer them to ask them at the end, so I will be mentioning that as well. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and I'm going to mute myself. You have complete control.
Okay, I will try to share my screen and start with that. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am Hanne Broter. I'm a graphic designer and visual brand manager and illustrator and web designer from Norway. And I'm going to talk to you today about the book cover design. And before we start, I have a few things that I like to say. And the first is that this class is very packed with information. I have timed it to 35 minutes. It may be longer, but in any case, it should leave us with some time for questions before 10 o'clock. So if you can please just note down everything you want to ask, and I will be happy to answer at the end. Also, importantly, there are a lot of images in this presentation. And if I should have purchased every one of them, this would would have been very expensive indeed. But since this is for teaching in a private setting, I have used a lot of images from Google. So when you get the recording, I kindly ask you not to share it publicly, as it will get me into great trouble. Thanks. And also thank you to Debbie for trusting in me and letting me do this book cover lecture. I enjoy it very much. So I will start with the limitations for book cover design, and this may seem a bit deterministic, but as a graphic designer, the parameters within which I'm going to create something is always the first thing that I ask about. And the funny thing is that this can often lead to more creativity. So let's look at what condition fences in. I am so fed up with this Zoom thing. Okay, let us look at what condition fences in the process of creating a book cover. And the first one is that we live in a world of thumbnails these days. People have changed how they buy books. Neither on websites like Amazon or in online advertising will people see your book cover in one-to-one size, not to mention social media, where everything is tiny, tiny. So this means that the most important condition that your book has to meet is that of being able to withstand digital downscaling without losing its meaning or impact. In fact, we may as well design for the thumbnail when planning our cover graphically. And what does that mean exactly, to design for a thumbnail? First and foremost, it requires that we use clear figuration. And clear figuration means that an image has a clear motive without any additional visual noise, as little as possible of visual noise. And clear figuration will let us see the motive even if the cover is downscaled. So having this in mind, what's next? And you need to think of your cover as the only illustration that you are permitted to have in your book, unless you are doing an illustrated book, of course. And this single illustration carries the responsibility to be the overall visual representation of the entire content of your book. It is almost like a logo. So your cover should capture and convey the main idea, the main concept, the mood, and the associations of your book. And the cover should set the tone on a high level and not dive into details. So we have the figuration, and we have it is the only illustration, and the next one is the format. And you will probably do your books in a portrait format, 6 by 9 inches, most of you. And this format is really quite narrow and high, which becomes clear when we compare it to an ordinary letter format. The image or illustration that you are looking for need to fit into this 6 by 9. And if you choose a motive or an illustration where the image need to be all visible from left to right, you must be prepared to accept that the image will not be able to span the entire cover height-wise as well. It's not possible. So the image, if it's a portrait or landscape format like this, will probably need to be smaller than you do envision to show in its entirety. And this doesn't mean that you cannot use a landscape format oriented image, but you must be prepared to have some areas in the cover without any image in it. And most importantly, you need to have some ideas on how to treat these areas. So if I try to let this image fill the entire height of the cover, you can see that we cannot get the height and the width in the same image. It's not possible. So we have talked about the design for the thumbnail, the clear figuration, that it can be the motive can be seen in a very small size, that it is the only illustration you may use, and it needs to fit the format. So with this in mind, let's talk about image content, because images have content. What will you show on the cover, and how will you show it? So we will take a look at something that I called graphic styles. And these are different ways of depicting the same visual content in different manners. And there are millions of them. So you can think of them as visual dialects or languages. These images all say bear, but in very different ways. Each of these bears have a content waiting for them or a context waiting for them where they will be exactly the right bear. So take 5 seconds to imagine what kind of book would be found inside a cover with each of these bears. So these are visual dialects. And to keep up with you here, I have made an imaginary book called English Cocker Spaniel Grooming for Beginners. And let's just say that I can identify very strongly with the target audience of this book, which is always a benefit when you are making visual communication of any kind. Always try to see your cover with the eyes of your target audience, in other words, your reader. And I will use this title to illustrate some different graphic styles. And as we go through the examples, try to think what word, expression, or association enters your mind when you see the images that I have used. Also try to translate it into the style into your topic, your book, your title. And please don't get lost in the I like syndrome. Because this is not about what you like, this is about what will communicate best with your target audience. So try to imagine how these approaches, look at this as approaches, would work or not work for your book, and why. Please answer that. So in the following covers for now, you can also disregard the typography because we will get back to that. And I ask you to look at the figuration and perceive the mood of the images. And also I show each cover in a thumbnail size so we can evaluate how it will work when downscaled. So this is an exercise I think you should do when you start working with your covers as well. And the first, I have said all this, so I'm just jumping ahead. And the first graphic style that we are going to look at is what we call photorealistic, which is a graphic style that is most used for illustrations, especially for non-fictional or popular scientific texts. And as the name suggests, you see what you see. We all know what a photograph is. But even in this very straightforward style, we can have huge variations. And in my case, with the Cocker Spaniel Grooming book, I can choose to show the process in full swing, like here, or here. This is another in-process version that may look less rough, both on the dog and the groomer and the reader, and maybe a better choice since the book is aimed at beginners. And the figuration, as you can see, is much better, clearer in this image than in the previous one. So we can ask if the instructions can start right at the cover. And this instructional style may assure you that this is a great how-to book and that you will be guaranteed to learn something. And it looks kind of scientific and may appeal to beginners who are really set on doing things correctly and it may scare off beginners who are afraid of not managing perfectly. So there are always two sides. And this image is what we call isolated on a white background. And it means that the background has been removed, and it will withstand downscaling very well because of the clear figuration. The arrows may be lost, though. Or we can choose to show the result of the process, the ideal outcome. What does it look like when people have read your book? How will they be when they have read your book? But this cover would scare me off a bit because it takes itself. I may have chosen or bought this book, but this book may have scared me a bit off, and that is because it takes itself very seriously. And I have to ask, can I really be a member of this club? Probably not. And I wouldn't have bought this book. This image, in my opinion, is more suited to a book called English Cocker Spaniel Advanced Grooming or something like that. It's a beautiful image and a beautiful dog, but to me this is very pretentious. Yeah. So always have many people look at your cover and tell you what they feel, and ideally, of course, they should be in your target audience, not your mother or any near relative. Yes, and anyone who makes a book with this title and admits to having a dog looking like this which is in desperate need of grooming, will have me as a book buyer in seconds. This is what most cocker owners see when they venture out on their first grooming experiment. It's very realistic, and we are almost entering the area of humor. Yes, even a photorealistic style has room for humor. And what I find liberating with this is that it narrows the psychological gap between the sender and the receiver. And especially humor that has a touch of self-irony. The fact that someone is comfortable and willing to give someone else a laugh on his or her expense tells me that I am meeting with an author who is confident enough about her expertise and competence to be able to see the comical sides of it. And this is another photorealistic thing, and oh dear, the grooming cover for the cozy do-it-yourselfers, very snug and friendly and withstands downscaling excellently, but probably not many male buyers to this one. So as you can see, the photorealistic graphic style opens up a ton of different variations. I have made 8 covers here, but I could probably have gone on and made 80. So it's important to find or take the image that best conveys and represents the main mood or idea of your book. And remember that this cover is your only illustration. So we will look at a new style, and this time we will look at the illustrations and drawings. And if the possibilities of the photorealistic graphic style was endless, drawings and illustrations offers even more. And this is because a drawing can make a visual point in a way a photograph cannot, because we can draw anything and people will accept it, even if it's pretty far-fetched. We have all read comics since childhood, So we are very used to drawings. But drawings can also be very serious and realistic even. So it can be something like this. An illustration like this gives quite a scientific look to the cover, and I would call this style encyclopedic. Even if I am totally floored by the drawing skills of this illustrator, the cover does not sell the book to me because it suggests that this book may be too much like a school book, dull and politically correct, and not allowing any deviations from the true rules of grooming. So here is another realistic drawing, but it certainly gives a much less scientific feeling. And this is also an example of a total style crash. Because the paw marks, even if they are drawn, belongs to a much lighter and more cartoonish graphic style. So despite the artful drawing of the dog, this cover gives me a strong feeling of do-it-yourself. Someone is not knowing what they are doing. Drawings can be very simple, just a few lines, and even without much detail, they can give a very clear and accurate rendering. And this is even simpler. This is a cocker, perfectly groomed, and I would have bought this book. So here's we are almost now we are on our way into the humor field again. This is a very simple vector illustration that emphasize and the characteristics of a well-groomed Cocker Spaniel. And even if quite exaggerated, these are the lines a Cocker owner wants to see in her dog. Some of us never do. And the main characteristics of a drawing or an illustration is their ability to exaggerate and make certain points, because they can show things that are not strictly true. And because this, they may even be more true than a realistic rendering, if you follow me, because they say something more. So through an illustration, we have the possibility of saying something more about our topic and give it a certain angle. And this is not actually a cocker at all, but I wanted to include this image as an example of a very simple, clear drawing that, without being totally realistic, expresses the proud feeling the owner has after she has actually achieved some kind of success in the grooming discipline. And the proud feeling is actually projected into the face of the dog. So we are both proud of this. And this is cartoonish, and the motives are almost like icons, very clear, with stance downscaling very well. And this is cartoonish and humoristic. We all know Cocker Spaniels do not wear curlers, so why this silly drawing? And maybe the author wants to say something about not taking things, everything literally, have room for not being perfect, and that she doesn't take herself very seriously, which means she probably knows what she is talking about. Same thing, even more. And these are all non-photographic images, from the most serious to the outright foolish. And I have made this collection for you to see what enormous amount of variation is possible within this graphic style. And I want you to, from here on, I want you to take some time to look at different styles of illustration when you see it online or in shops or on television or anywhere, because these are just a few. And besides, in some way or other depicting the cover on the cover exactly what the book is about, we can use images to get to the point via something else. And I have made one category out of all these types of images, even if they can be very different. And I have called this category metaphors, taking things literally and thinking out of the box. And taking things literally can have surprisingly and exciting results. And not all topics or titles lend themselves easily to this approach. This super accurate example that spring to mind are the books by the brothers Chip and Dan Heath. And you may be sure that in this case, some creative minds have taken care of the project from a very early stage, and that the titles may even have been created alongside their illustrations. So the illustrator has taken one word in each case, stick and switch, and actually found a totally literal image that says the same. I have great problems coming up with something corresponding to this for my book title, I can say. However, when we think about these literal images for a while, we will discover that they are not only literal, but they are also metaphors to their book's concepts. The duct tape certainly sticks, and so has been used as a metaphor for stories that will be remembered well. And the light switch has been used as a metaphor for organizational or personal change. Metaphors are a great way of illustration because with them we use one concept or idea to illustrate another, and by that making it clearer and more easy to understand. Yes, of course, we want our stories to stick, and we want our organizations to change as quickly, as easily as turning on a light switch. So we buy the books. At least I did. And a metaphor is a figure of speech, a verbal thing. And when made visual, metaphors can often be hilarious, eye-opening, and add a whole new layer to things. So if you do have a word in your book title that, or words in your book title that lend themselves easily to be illustrated by a metaphor, I think you should think about this possibility, or even if you can change your title so it does. So you may ask, what is a visual metaphor? And I found this definition on the internet. A visual metaphor is a creative representation of a concept, person, place, thing, or idea through an image that uses analogy, I think it is, or association. Another definition is that it is when the familiar is turned into something extraordinary and engaging. As an example, the elephant in the room is an old and well-used metaphor, and showing him in real life like this certainly makes an impact. No comment to this one. Here are more literally visual things. This one on the right is an advertisement for Tabasco sauce. Yes, you get the other ones. Here are some more from the same sender, and it's obvious that the economists have some very creative brains among their designers. And no comments again, except that I think that the heart of trainers is just absolutely genial. If your title doesn't lend itself to metaphors or being taken literally like this, like the Heath brothers books, you can in other ways perhaps think out of the box and draw attention to yourself that way, draw attention to your book that way. And yes, here is more. It's a bit hard to see, but this one says poetry after 9/11. It's great. And the other ones speak for themselves. Yes, I'm not sure if cocker grooming is the topic where one will find most metaphors, but I will definitely have my camera at hand the next time I meet with Brandy for a friendly controversy with scissors and brushes. And of course, your book will need a title on the cover, and the title will need a font. And I'm sorry, but we have to go back to the conditions again. And it turns out that they nearly all apply to the typography as well. Design for a thumbnail, clear figuration, fit the format. And fonts, they say more than the words that have been set with them. And what do I mean by that? I mean that fonts have strong flavors and can give associations to certain industries, historic periods, geographical areas, and a whole lot of other things. So take 2 seconds and study these examples so you can see what I mean. And then start looking for what fonts really say when you see them everywhere around you. It's a very good exercise. And using a font that doesn't suit the words sends out a signal of clashing that can be the total opposite of what you want. You will want to test your title in more than one font to see what different fonts can do for it. I made this illustration some years ago, and we have seen one president of the lower kind and one president of the upper kind. This font is called Comic Sans, and it's a font that is so bad that the book has actually been written about it. And it's called Thou Shalt Not Use Comic Sans. So then I have warned you. These are the 4 main types of fonts that you may consider using for your cover. It's the serif fonts, and they have this internal difference in weight. And by that, I mean that they have bold downstrokes and light or thin sideways strokes. And these are often called hair strokes, and you can hear why. Serif fonts also have serifs. This is what my son used to call boot cuts when he was 7 years old. And they are supposed to, they are considered to making reading faster, as the eye swipes along the line with the help of the serifs. And serif fonts look serious, formal, and a bit old-fashioned, I think. Then we have the sans serif fonts, and they do not have any serifs because sans means without in French, as you may know, and they have little or no apparent difference in weight. So they appear to be equally thick or thin all over. That isn't mathematically true, but that's the impression we get. And sans serif look informal and modern. And then we have the script fonts, and these are fonts that are created to resemble handwriting. And they are in high fashion of typography, and what is in vogue changes all the time. So be critical when evaluating a script font because some of them are very, very hard to read. And display fonts, which is totally missing here, I can see because I have a new Mac. I have a new Mac. So this this should be something really hilarious. I can show you another time, so I don't have to stop the presentation. But display fonts are fantastic and decorative fonts, and they are only suited for titles and very, very short texts. And this slide shows you how different fonts withstand digital downscaling. And always do this exercise and see what your title font will look like in a thumbnail size. And your title font needs to fit the message of the title. This is a work by the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, dressed up in totally wrong costume. It is exaggerated, I know, but I have seen things that are not very far from this bad. So choose a font for your title that really shows what kind of message you are sending out. I am exaggerating again. I like that to make my point. This is a total crash between the message and the image. So please avoid the message and the font, the message of the font. So please avoid this. And then we have the scripts, and I have no comments on this one, except don't use a font that looks like something the Hoover didn't pick up when downscaled. This would be a catastrophe on social media. And not to forget, your cover can be typography only. So don't forget that. Many bestsellers have only had letters on their covers. And so at last we are entering the world of colors. And if you are branding your book, if you're branding your book, I will need to see what I have said here. Wow, you need to brand the book to itself. And what I mean by that is that we have looked at the fonts and graphic styles and images and everything, and you need to brand these things to each other. That's what I'm trying to say. So in the same way, you need to choose a font that plays with both the title and the cover visuals. And now we need to complete the cover with the colors that will work well with the other elements as well. I don't know if you understand that. You can brand your book to your business brand, but when you have your book and no business brand, you still need to make the different parts of the different elements on the cover speak the same visual language, and that is what I mean by brand the book to itself. So I have chosen this cover for this exercise. And one way of finding colors that will work with the image is to pick them from the image itself. And I have picked three colors, which is a golden dark brownish thing, which comes from the dog, and a lighter version of the same, and a complementary dark blue. And first I tried to use the light orange on the background and the darker on the text, and this works, it's okay, but I feel that the cover is a bit weak, and I would like the image to have more support from its surroundings. So switching the background and text color, it helps a lot. And in this third version, I have tried with the complementary blue in the background and added a narrow bar of the dark orange on each side of the image. And this is the best version, I think, because blue backgrounds are nearly always great. And this is a physical phenomenon because blue is the color that is perceived to be furthest away from us when we are looking in nature, while reds will always fight their way forwards in the composition. So besides the blue, in this case, makes the golden colors of the dogs shine even more because they are complementary. So that's also a physical effect. I'm making a thumbnail version of these. I will go, I'm trying to see what you see and not see the Zoom thing. Okay. You can see that we have some work to do here on the typography. And I will probably need to increase the font size of the title. And there is plenty of room for that. So it would probably not be any problem setting the title on 3 lines to be able to have bigger letters. And if you use an isolated image on your cover and want to keep this crisp contrast between it and the white background, remember what I said at the very beginning of this presentation. You can do so and assign other areas of your cover to text and color. So you don't need to have a white cover even if you have an isolated image. Yes, and then there is the question of real branding, or, you know, if you want to use your business or author branding for your cover. And if you do that, you need to provide your brand colors and fonts to your editor and designer. And this is a risky business, or it's challenging because not all images that we want to use is perfect for the brand colors that we want to use. So like this, for instance, if your brand color and the image that you want to use for your cover, they are not playing well together, something needs to be done. And one way of solving this is to isolate the motif. In this case, it will be the dog, to make it placeable on any color. And if this is not an option, because you may need the entire image, the content of the entire image, then I will suggest that the best way of securing that an image harmonizes with the brand color is to conduct the image search with this in mind. And there are options in some stock photo bases to search for images that are dominated by one certain color. So I did that and I came up with this. So it's pretty cool. Yep. And the brand font should have at least four or more weights. It's for variation. And one warning, I will not read this. You can read it yourself. Get it? Yes. Some fonts are already branded by somebody else, so keep away from them. And if your brand font is a very wide one, you may have problems setting a nice, short, compact text group for the title, and you may want to consider using something else. Yes, I will very quickly, Debbie, say something about the back cover. This is positive text, and that is black or very dark letters on a white or very light background. And this is the most easy for people to read. The text kind of just flows effortlessly into our eyes. However, unless your cover is also white, otherwise, this may seem like a dull solution to you. So you may want to have a colored background to your text. And if I'm darkening the background color and keeping the text black, it becomes more and more hard to read. Here it starts to get really hard on the eyes. Black text on a blue background is the hardest of all. And that's why I have used it here. And this is the point where we should switch to white text, or negative text as we call it. And use a bolder version of the font when switching to white text. We know that the dark background eats into the letter forms and they appear thinner than they really are. So in this case, you can see that the last paragraphs here has been made bolder and thus are clearer and more easy to read. Also be careful with serif fonts in negative texts. As we mentioned before, serif fonts have these very thin hair strokes that will almost disappear against a dark background. And according to what we learned in the last slide, we will want to avoid that. And be extremely careful if you want to put the back cover text on an image. It is possible to do this in a successful manner, but I would strongly recommend that you ask for help from a graphic designer. And I recommend that you print and measure your back cover. And why is that? Because unlike the front cover, which needs to work in smaller sizes than we actually make them, your back cover will need to work in a one-to-one manner. It needs to be readable when people hold it in their hands. And when you print the back cover, you will discover if the text is too small or perhaps too big. If your book is 6 by 9 inches, use a ruler to check that what comes out of your printer is really 6 by 9 inches. If you have left the settings in your printer to scale to fit, big no-no, the printer will scale the cover to use the entire paper in your printer, which is probably 8.5 by 11 inches. And your back cover will emerge from the printer looking like something for the visually impaired, as as someone told me once, who had left her printer on this setting. I will not say who it was. So set your printer to 100%. And as the last point today, I will point your attention to a channel that has many similarities to your book cover, and this is your author website. The cover is limited in space and should even work in a very small size. And that is why we have spoken today on how to use this space efficiently. The website is also limited in space because it is limited in time. You have about 5 seconds to catch the visitor's attention and interest. If they cannot make sense of what is in front of them, and it does not trigger their interest to scroll down, read more, or even click some of your links, they will just leave your website in a very, very short time. Like for the cover, you need to plan the content and layout of the front page accordingly. And this front page is just this window. And we need to make sure to use it to our best advantage and make the reader know, like, and trust you and capture his or her interest for your authorship and books in this space. And I have a website for you somewhere that I made for an author. And I will move us away. And this may be more than you asked for at the beginning or need at the beginning, but the great thing about the web is that you can always add more pages and more functionality when you need it. So it's always the discussion of the author or the book, and we solve this in here by the author and the book. So you can have the link to this page if you want. Okay, I think I have used much more time than I was supposed to. And if there are any questions, I will be happy to answer them. And if you think of anything when we have done, feel free to email me on any questions on this email address. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hanne. I want to just give you a sneak peek at one of Hanne's covers that my box arrived yesterday. So you're seeing it before anyone else. And it's the book that we're launching in, in March. It's absolutely gorgeous, but here you can see the negative space. This is completely branded to Highlander Press. But she came up with this idea of the heart attracting other hearts. So really, she's very clever. But that's one that you can see. What questions do you have for Hanne? And Avery, if you have any questions, you can slip them in the chat and I'll be your voice proxy. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Hanne, is it acceptable to have two different styles of fonts for your title and subtitle, or should they both be the same type of font?
No, for the title and the subtitle, you can very well have two different fonts, but I would need to look at them and, you know, see if they, because they need to harmonize or contrast with each other. So having one font and then one that doesn't, they need to suit each other. So you see what I mean? So
Yeah.
you don't go to the party in tuxedo and sneakers.
Yeah.
That's a
Thank
good
you.
question. The other thing is you want to limit the number of fonts that you're using on your cover, as well as the number of colors that you're using on your cover, because you don't want them to fight with each other. And so, for example, Joe's book is called Free Spirit at Free Safety. And there could be some fun with the typography to capture that free feeling. But we've got to keep in mind that primarily your author, Joe, is going to be men who love American football. Could be women, but and if we chose a font that made it more accessible for women, that could maybe open up who might pick it up as well. So there's a whole lot of things to consider.
Definitely. Thank you.
What other questions? I know, thank you, Hanne. That was always fun. Go ahead, Gina.
I do have a question. So, and I don't remember what I was putting. I think I was putting out there with my logo. And I had a younger person, my oldest daughter's friend, that said, because I was using, and I know this goes against your rules, Hannah. We'll work on that later. But because I was using a font that was like more of like a cursive, that a lot of like schools are like not teaching that anymore, so it could impact like people being able to like connect with that. What are your thoughts on that?
You mean that using was it a script font? Was it
Yeah, script.
yes,
Yeah.
so you used it with the intention of attracting younger readers? Is that what you're saying?
No, I had used it, and my daughter's friend had said, one thing you might want to consider is that kids now are
They
not
can't read.
learning.
Yes, they can't read it. Sorry, I got it
Yeah.
the wrong way around.
Yeah, that's okay.
That is very interesting, and I have seen it elsewhere, and the same, the same challenge. I have read about other people having the same challenge. Yes, I think to be quite sure, you would probably want to change it's always the readability test, and the readability when they don't even read script fonts or handwritten fonts. That's a double challenge. So if you could find something that will be readable and still understandable for young people and still reflect, your core message, I think you will probably find something, but you may want to look for it for a while because there are so many fonts. Yes, but I'm sure that your font is out there somewhere. Yes.
And also there's been some recent developments in typography for the interior of a book. Normally, especially for fiction, but even nonfiction, we use serif fonts because, as Hanne mentioned in her presentation, they're easier on the eye to read, the words connect. But they're discovering that people who have reading challenges like dyslexia or other kinds of books, it really makes it much harder. So there's got to be so there's some accessibility issues with people who may not be able to work with that text. So Avery, we are going to talk about this because gray is not the color. Because here's the thing hers is it's a romance novel that has a strong mental health image, which is like a play on the word gray. But when you're looking at someone, think about what you're scrolling through. If something's gray, it sort of fades into the background. It's not going to, we need to, I think, use metaphor in your cover design, but gray would not be the color. I mean, I was looking at, and we were going to talk about this on Monday, but Hanne, you take over, talk about some color choices, and Hanne will likely be the person doing your cover, Avery. So you'll have lots of feedback on that. Yeah,
Yes,
and
I have a question.
Joe, Hanne's going to do your cover as well.
Yes, I have a question regarding the gray matter. Isn't that something that is in our heads?
Yes, it's
Yes.
because
Yeah.
there's mental health in a lot of, and
Yeah,
and
so
Avery
it's actually
Avery it doesn't have a microphone that's working, so that's why I'm talking for her.
okay. Okay.
Hey,
That's great. Yes, and I think isn't the brain pink?
okay, I'm out. I lost connection. I'm sorry.
You're here.
Oh,
We have you.
we can hear you.
Can hear you and see
I,
you.
I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Okay. You may have just moved your image. If you click on the bottom of your screen, you might have a zoom button. If you click on that, you'll probably see us.
No,
Okay. Well, do you want to ask your question?
I don't have any question.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've already talked to Hanne about your cover, Joe. So
Okay.
yeah, with some of the challenges, and I've been poking around on, and you and I are going to have an editorial call here coming soon because I get your book back next week from the copy edits. It was a really easy copy edit, very clean.
Oh, thank you.
The biggest challenge is you were writing in the AP style and we're converting it to Chicago Manual of Style.
Yeah, okay. Well, hey, because I can't see you guys, I'm going to chime on out of here if that's okay.
No, it's perfectly fine. And I'll see you next week.
Okay, you take care now.
All right, ciao.
See you.
Let me stop the recording. And then